Hello, and thank you for listening to the Seattle Podcasters Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Rigden. This is the show that interviews Seattle area podcasters about their podcast, why they make it, how they make it, and podcasting in general. On this episode of the show, I have Seth Seppala of Dented Dimension. I'm not sure if I can really describe what Dented Dimension is. It is a fictional podcast, but beyond that, it's almost indescribable. I can tell you that it is personally one of my favorite podcasts. So it was a real thrill to be able to talk to Seth about his show. It was a really great interview and I really enjoyed it. But before we get to the interview, I have this quick message. If you're listening to this show, you are probably a fan of podcasting and you'd probably appreciate local content. So I might have something interesting for you. I've made this list. It's a list of podcasts, of Seattle area podcasts. This list is intended to be a complete catalog of every podcast from the Seattle area. We have hundreds of podcasts on there right now. So if you're looking for more locally produced independent media, this list is for you. You can find the list at seattlepodcasters.com/list. Like I said, there's hundreds of podcasts on this list, and we even have categories. I've got categories for food and drink, civics and politics. We've got geek culture. We've got a section for D&D. There are just so many awesome shows on there. Please check it out. Once again, it's at seattlepodcasters.com/list. And remember, this is supposed to be a complete list. So if you have a podcast or if you know someone who does have a podcast and they're not on the list, please contact me as soon as possible and I will add them. So one more time, to find hundreds of local podcasts, just go to seattlepodcasters.com/list. And if you don't remember, there's going to be a link, of course, in the show notes. On this episode, I have Seth Seppala of Dented Dimension. How are you doing?
Me? Oh, I'm doing good, man. So it's like a Friday afternoon at 4, so everyone left the office. I'm in my office right now, so it's awesome. We got a 3-day weekend, dude. Can't really be better than that, man. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Sure.
So could you tell our listeners just a little bit about your podcast?
Sure. And I'm like really bad at this part. I know that I should have like some sort of like, I don't know, elevator pitch for my show, but it's like really impossible to kind of describe. I guess, I don't know. It's like if like steroid-addled weightlifters wrote a sketch comedy program, but also, I don't know, they had been, failed out of grade school at the same time. So like put like Monty Python, like Captain Beefheart, Frank Zappa, and like Terry Southern, the writer who wrote like for Dr. Strangelove, in a bag and like subtract 60 IQ points or something like that. It's something like that along those lines.
And so it's a fictional story though.
Yeah. So it's going to be, just really, it's a fictional podcast with real brain problems shouted at you at the top of your lungs. So I want it to be, something that's always engaging you at 11 out of 10, as per Spinal Tap, like 100% of the time. I want it to be over the top every second for the entire show. So yeah, it's like fictional and just kind of like just full bore.
And how long have you been doing the show?
Just about 13 months now. I think I started in December of 2017.
And how many episodes have you put out?
Now I'm up to 23 is going to be, my 23rd episode is going to be on Monday. It's going to be coming out.
And what motivated you to start this show?
Oh man, I've just been, I've been writing. Well, I've always, fancied myself a writer. And then, when I actually began writing and like submitting a bunch of like short stories and things of that nature to like literary magazines and getting rejected from everyone, it's just like a different reincarnation of that. So I did that for a few years and then stopped per, Charles Bukowski. I stopped for, a number of years and then got back into it just when I got into podcasting. I think I started listening to what people were putting out there. I'm like, I can do that, and I like writing. So this is kind of my offering, I guess, to that space, if that's an answer or not.
Yeah. And had you done any podcasts before this one?
I had not. No. I tried to do like a narrative. And See, as you'll probably tell during this interview, is like I'm not good at extemporaneous speaking. I really suck at that. I started trying to do. I'm really into history, so I started trying to make a narrative of palace architecture from like the first palaces, like the Palace of Knossos, right, in the Mycenaean culture, and then all the way through like the Roman palace, blah 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 blah. So I was like reading all these architectural and archaeological books and things like that to get ready for my first episode. It was going to be on the Palace of Knossos. I might be pronouncing it wrong. I don't know, but I just couldn't even do it. I mean, I started talking like this, and I kept going back and making mistakes and just messing up. And like, there's no way on earth I would get through more than like 2 sentences at a time. And I have to splice together so much stuff. It just wasn't happening. So I tried to do that, and I was so abortive. I didn't even get through, a fifth of one episode before going back to the drawing board and just realizing I had to go and rely completely on writing, and scripting out stuff completely.
But then you decided to do a podcast that like was very highly produced. You've got like actors, people doing voices and scripts.
Oh yes. Yeah, I mean, that's just that everything is like so complicated, I guess, with me, man. So the initial idea before I got into like try to do the narrative one is I read a David Mamet play. I'm into reading plays, and I read a play of his that he wrote for the PBS in like the late 70s. I think it was called The Shawl, because I was going through a bunch of his different plays, but this one wasn't for a live production. It was for it was called an ear play for PBS. And I just started reading. I think it had like Jeff Goldblum, a number of other kind of like minor names at the time. And I started reading it, and it was like about this train. The scene was like a train going through the Old West in like the 1880s, 3 a.m. in the morning. So it was like really atmospheric. It was just his ability to just make a situation and add sound effects. I mean, you could read out all the stagings and things like that. It was just speaking my language. I was like, I mean, I can do that. I mean, I want to do that. That seems like that would be like fun. Not only, I mean, I want to do that. I know my brain is capable of making that. It sounds awesome. So that's what I wanted to do. And then I ended up writing a project called The Russian Bear. And it was about a 30, I worked it out in my mind. It would have been like a 30-minute kind of play involving 4 or 5 different voices, different people in it. And I think that I bought a bunch of just podcasting equipment and stuff, recording equipment. And I tried to get some of my friends to record it with me live. We printed out paper copies of the script and everything like that, and tried to record it on 2 mics with doubling up on the mics and things like that. And I knew nothing about what I was doing, and recorded 4 people on 2 mics from paper copies of the script all on 1 track. And it was just like, I didn't know what I was doing. It ended up being a nightmare. It was just way too complex for my ability at that point. So I kind of like put that on hiatus, forgot about it, then tried to do that one palace kind of architecture podcast. And this is like embarrassing you even say that. And realized I had to go back to writing, but I had to take it back to square one. Since I wasn't ready to make like a production, I had to take it back to a monologue based kind of ranting. It's just me reading off script and then interdispersed with like explosions, which is you can hear if like episodes like 1 to, I don't know, 5 or 6. It's just me shouting crazy stuff with explosions put in the middle of it. And it just got more complex from there. And I began working into creating space, creating scenes, adding more sound effects, then adding people gradually until now I'm actually doing what I originally kind of envisioned. It's probably about 10 to 12 people per podcast at this point. They're run about 10 to 15 minutes, and they're really complex. The scenes just go into each other. And I'm, when I look back on it now, I'm finally doing what I kind of set out to do. And I don't know where we're going to go from here, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's very, very unique. I'd forgotten about those first episodes and kind of how the show had evolved and the flavor kind of changed.
Yeah, it's really organic. Yeah.
So what have been the biggest challenges of producing this podcast?
I don't know. I mean, I have so much fun that I don't really think that it's that challenging. Just getting people, getting like, adults to show up. Scheduling humans and scheduling humans time is really hard. I mean, a couple of people are super great. Yourself, because once I started making contact with you, I was like, hey, I mean, if you like it, I mean, please, I mean, do you want to be in it? I'm always looking for voices. So just getting people's time, getting people to come and show up, recording and cut their lines is, which I do individually. I find that I have the best kind of control over everything that way. But that's probably the biggest problem. Apart from that, I mean, but even that's kind of frustrating. But when people show up, it's a lot of fun. I mean, writing it's fun, recording it's fun. And then, editing it together is a lot of fun. It's really satisfying all the way around. I don't have too many complaints.
What's really interesting about your show, or at least the production side, is about how most podcasts are much more kind of free form, whereas yours is so much more structured on the production side. You really have to have things planned out. It
has to be. Yeah. It would be such a disaster if I tried to wing anything. Like I've heard you, I mean, a lot of people, they have just an innate ability to talk. And especially, I mean, it sounds like I'm doing well because you're probably doing a good job of guiding me through the funnel. But if I actually had something that I wanted to say, like I wouldn't be able to make up a way to say it. I don't say, please follow us on Facebook, blah, 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 at the beginning or end, because every time I try to do that, like it takes longer than having someone in and read all their lines. I mean, because I keep having to redo it. Like, no, that's not right. No, that's not right. No, that's not right. And it's like, you know what? I can't even do this. Forget it. I'm not even putting it on there. So for me, I mean, it has to be scripted because I will mess up anything that's not. I'm a writer. I'm not a performer.
And how long does it take to write a script for one episode?
I'd say, man, I don't know. It varies since I do this at work. So I do my writing probably takes a couple weeks, writing maybe an hour or two a day, to get a first draft. And then over the next couple weeks, I will get the first draft to a second and third draft. So it probably takes another 2 weeks of going over it to actually get it hammered out and ready for actually people to read it. So maybe a month or something like that, just if I was giving myself a time frame in my mind, I would probably schedule out 3 weeks to a month to get something ready.
And where do you draw your inspiration from? I mean, you have your episodes are so multi-layered and have so many references.
I don't know. I think that I started with some high. I guess the threshold has gotten much lower, or maybe I've just gotten into a groove or something like that. But at the beginning, I really wanted to make it cerebrally, or maybe conceptually, like really interesting or something like that. I'd like to like take ideas that I could actually misquote people from time, like historians and like historic sources and stuff. I don't even know what the hell I'm trying to say. I guess I started out trying to have like really elaborate ideas, and I wouldn't go forward with a script unless I thought it was like the core kind of idea and the base for it was like super interesting and engaging and really like, I don't know, like, oh man, that's a novel idea. At this point, it's like, I just want people shouting at each other. And that's kind of like just go off that. And then like they just write themselves. But I don't know, maybe I can go a little bit too far on that and like having not enough ideas to actually fuel it through. But I don't know, maybe I'm just getting more into the spirit of things. But like if I can start out with like a really ridiculous kind of situation, it will just write itself and I don't worry too much. I just kind of pick a spot to begin and just go. And then just a process will make a beginning, middle, and an end. And it will just work out.
Yeah, it works out. I'm a big fan of this show. And do you run any ads or ask for donations?
No. Well, yes and no. I mean, there's a couple. Number one, I don't have a big enough audience to like ask for any sort of donations. I mean, I imagine that if in 20 years time, if there's like tens or 100,000 people that listen to this show, maybe I'll ask for like a donation. But no, I don't do anything like that. As for ads, yeah, what I do is, since I like, I like the idea of designing everything. And my conceptual kind of idea before I even had a podcast, like I wanted to write not only the like the storyline, I wanted to like write like ads, but have fake ads in them. And I do that now, but the way I was envisioning it, like I wanted like to have like I would make a product up and like have a fake ad for the fake product. And I don't know. I think that idea sounds a lot better than it actually is, because that'd be kind of like stupid, you know? I think I've seen that in like cartoons. The idea sounds like it would be cooler than actually just making a spoof ad, which is what I do now. I try to put like I don't know, just like a spoof ad for one of the basic podcasts, standard kind of podcast as you hear. It's like spoof, and I think I've had like Gobble and Blue Apron and Wink on the last episode, and there's probably like a half dozen or maybe even more. It might be 7 or 8 of them right now. So I kind of am giving up on ever becoming sponsored by anyone, just because I'm running through everyone that could possibly sponsor me and like ruining my chances with that. So I imagine I'll have a cease and desist before I ever get sponsored.
Yeah, that could be. I wonder about there's a guy who does Behind the Bastards, and he always claims that the show is kind of sponsored by Doritos, and then he stopped for a while. And I'm pretty sure
What's Behind the Bastards?
Oh, it's this great show where he just picks a bastard and then just talks about the person's history. So the last thing is a 3-part episode about Mark Zuckerberg. And like he's got one on like Alex Jones and just Paul Manafort, all the horrible people. Like I think he's got one like on Napoleon. Yeah, it's really great stuff where he digs into history. Usually has like a couple comedians with him, and then they just talk about how horrible this person is. It's usually way worse than you ever thought.
Nice. And what he always says, he's sponsored by Doritos?
Yeah, so they'll talk about like Doritos, and he'll eat Doritos, and he'll say about how it's his favorite chip. And then one day he just stopped. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they gave him like a cease and desist letter where, we don't want to be associated with this.
He must have a big enough letter. Like one of the other dudes that like was one of my one of the biggest supporters of my show. He's been like almost every single one that I've asked him to do. He's come on and done it. But he's like, yeah, man, whenever you get your first cease and desist, dude, you'll know you've made it. Like, so if anyone reaches out to me and tells me to stop, I'm gonna be very excited on that day. So.
That is a good milestone, because it's not something you control and it's totally attainable.
So. Yeah, I know. No kidding. If like Wink or anything like that, or someone actually is listening, that means I have a larger audience than 5 people, which I probably am at right now.
So where do you host your actual files?
Man, this is the kind of element that I'm not good at. I think that it's SoundCloud.
Okay.
That's the one that doesn't like link with Spotify or something like that. I'm not on Spotify, so I'm thinking it's like SoundCloud.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I
think
have to
so.
like figure out how to like change that. It's just, I don't know. I'm not looking forward to actually changing it to a more kind of effective thing, like marketing and the actual technical side of it is like I'm not good at it. It's kind of a headache to me. And
for SoundCloud, how has that experience been of hosting on SoundCloud?
I don't know. Since I have nothing really to gauge off of, I don't know. Since I'm not on Spotify, I guess that's the only big complaint that I have. I'm not sure. Of course, if I was on, that would make it even a big difference to me at all at this point. So, I have no real complaints. I think that from looking at other users and their comments and stuff, I think that a lot of times they don't know. Just getting metrics on listens and things like that are kind of like inaccurate. That's pretty much it. It's kind of chintzy. And so how do you record your episodes? Does anybody record remotely? No, I tried to do that once. I hired an actor from LA, and they sent me a sound file, and it just didn't go in the mix. So I tried to record everyone live. In fact, everyone has made it into one of my podcasts. I recorded live, and I just recorded everyone individually, because that's, again, I after that kind of abortive attempt to record 4 different people on 2 mics and 1 channel, I just try to record everyone on 1 channel, and then I can cut up their, I can go through everyone's kind of recording session and pick out the parts that I like the best, and then cut that up and then put that into the kind of form work of the conversation, so I have the most control over the timing and such like that. But yeah, it's just one by one. Have someone come in, read through the script. It usually takes maybe 20 to 30 minutes on average. I mean, you've done it a couple of times. We've had you shouting things over and over and over. A lot of times they can be complex sentences and stuff. So you just need to get into like the kind of feeling of it, go through it a few times and just keep on doing it and do it in different ways, kind of get different people's feeling for, the different lines and stuff like that.
So that seems like maybe a kind of a unique way of doing these kinds of shows where you have like characters. Is I think usually they are all, so oftentimes, at least when people are interacting, there's the two people that are interacting are together, but you're doing it just one person at a time.
Yeah, I think that's going to be. It's just like the timing aspect of it. If I had, number one, I think is just, again, going back to like people, once they have jobs and stuff like that and commitments, getting two people's calendars, it's hard enough to get someone to come in for 20 minutes and record their lines. Getting two people to have their calendars sync, and then for that to even be beneficial, you'd have to actually have people going over and rehearsing their lines if you actually wanted them to come and do them together. So then they'd have to, like, not only would you have to sync two people's calendars up, which would be harder than just getting one person to come in, you'd have to actually get them to devote time to like reading lines for something you're not being paid for. And yeah, I don't know. That would be so, I don't know. I just don't think it's happening. And most people that come in haven't even read the script. I mean, I send them the script and then they're like, yeah, I haven't even read this. Like, don't even worry about it. So if people are coming in, not even reading the script, I bet trying to get someone to do that and practice it would just be pointless. And also I think that, doing it live with two or more people would really mess up the timing too. I would be relinquishing control that I have by recording everyone separately to really get each interaction as close as I want, if I can put it that way. Again, I'm not very good explaining myself verbally. That's why I write everything. But this should be. I'm trying to make it as an assault on your ears, and each scene I want stacked so close to the other scene, each conversation, each reply, I want stacked so close that, if someone did it live, I don't know if it would be as good as me having two voices I can put in any way and rearrange in any way that I like. Because a lot of times in post-production, since it's so detailed and it takes it's so elaborate, a lot of times I'll rearrange the screenplay or whatever, not the screenplay, but the audio play, and come up with a completely different pattern and even a completely different ending or resolution just by working with what I got. Like, well, as I intended it in my head, that doesn't really work very well. And then I try to rearrange stuff like, well, that's way better. You wouldn't be able to do that if you're just recording live. So I think that, or two people live. So I think, again, it's a freedom that I can use or that I can have with manipulating singly recorded people is much better.
Well, it's a great example of using a perceived weakness as a strength. A lot of people, well, like you said, you want to do these shows and you want to get a whole group of people together, but it's super, super hard.
Oh yeah.
But you've made it work, like by figuring out a way to hack that kind of.
Yeah. It's like, it's grown organically. I don't know what we're going to do moving on in the future, but yeah, that's like, it's just, again, it's bringing me back from square one where I just had to bring it back to just monologues. And then like, well, what if I add one more person? Then we record it separately. And then what about two? It's just, there's no master plan. It's just as I go, what's the easiest way of doing things? And it just so happens that the easiest way of doing things also gives the greatest amount of control. So yeah, it's one of those things.
So you've got all these separate recordings. About how much time does it take to produce a final episode, like the post-production?
No. So once, it depends on how things come together. Like anything. I mean, some things, you have a piece that writes itself and then you record it and then like, oh my God, it all goes together as well too. It's like I envisioned it and it's all good. It's not all terrible. I thought that, like the last one, the reptilians one came together pretty well. There's some stuff in the middle that I wasn't super happy with, but by and large, I was pretty happy. That was pretty effortless. The one I'm doing now is more of an uphill struggle. I'm really proud of it. I think that it's more complex, but after you get everyone recorded, and I left for Cincinnati in the middle of it, so I record half the people at the beginning, then I left for a holiday. Then came back, recorded the other half of the people, had to drive to Spokane to record someone because one of my actors dropped out. So I had to go record someone else, but rent a car, go to Spokane, record them, come back. Once all that stuff's done, then I don't know. It's on a good one that all goes together, maybe 30 hours. This one's probably pushing 60 hours or something like that because I've had to rethink everything like multiple times for multiple scenes. So I would imagine a spread of maybe 30 to 60 hours or something like that.
Wow, that's quite a lot. Like, I know lots of people are interested in making kind of fictional podcasts kind of like this, and I think that they underestimate the amount of time that it takes to produce.
Yeah, but it's what you want to do. I'm sure that you could do a podcast where, it's fictional and you spend way less time and it could be way more successful because you have, I don't know, you actually have a theme that actually is nailed down to a specific audience or something like that. This is just purely where I want to go with it and my own standards and what exactly I'm trying to do. And it's really also not geared to any specific audience. So there's no audience for it, but like, it just makes me, I just want to make sure that it's hitting exactly what I want to do. So, and that's just going to take as long as it takes.
And what software do you use to edit?
Right now I think this is this episode is going to be the last episode. This one's coming out. It's called The Time Machine, using Audacity. And then I'm going to be beginning to use, Adobe Audition. So we'll see what that can bring to things. I'm looking forward to beginning to use filters because I've used so many tracks. I think that beginning to incorporate filters and some other tools that they have there is going to clean things up quite a bit and make the sound superior. So now I'm trying to get into the nuts and bolts technically to bring my game up because I think I've pushed Audacity as far as it could go. Right now, I'm sure it could go further, but as far as track wise, I'm probably 20 tracks plus per episode, all mixed together. And yeah, I just need to go with another more professional platform from here on out, I think.
And where do you find your voice actors?
Just my friends. Yeah, just my friends. And then if I wanted something specific, I have gone on Craigslist and hired an actor or two. But those are few and far between. That's more if I can't find something specific and I want something specific and the deadline's coming up, someone's dropped out. Like, oh my God, now I just need something or someone. And I did gather or garner someone that I worked with. That's really great. I love this dude's voice, and he's worked with me through some stuff. Anyway, so predominantly it's just my friends that do this for free, and occasionally it's through Craigslist. And to get back to your other point, or your other question, I once hired a voice actor from LA, and they recorded remotely. I didn't realize they were from LA when I hired them. And then they sent me the file. I tried to put it in the mix, and it was so obvious that it didn't fit, that these people were not interacting with each other. I had nothing to do with it. I actually scrapped the project. It wasn't based on that, but that was kind of the thing that killed it. It's just, this is obviously, it killed the illusion. The suspension of disbelief just was not there anymore.
Is it hard to get people to come on the show?
I think it's harder to get people to stay coming. So for the first, like for a lark, it's like, I imagine this is, I don't know how often, see, again, I'm not, this is not what I do. It's so to get people to come initially, they think it's fun. Like, yeah, sure. That sounds cool. And they'll show up and they'll do it. And then the next time, maybe they'll show up twice. But after that, I think that, by and large, people, they've got things to do. I don't know how often I would show up. I'd probably show up once if someone else called, if I wasn't into podcasting, and someone kept calling me up every month to do another one. I don't know if I would show up for it or not. So to be honest, the people that didn't, so generally speaking, I think I've found probably six or so, maybe half a dozen, a core of people that are in this that are now just, I am just forever indebted to, that come here and are making this a possibility, because they're just helping me essentially achieve a dream of mine, which is to create art. So it's like they're very much in this with me. That's my perception of it. So I don't want them to feel like I'm using them. I'm certainly not getting any money from it, but I am really, really grateful to people that help me do this, because it's ridiculous. And they're grown-ups, they're reading these idiotic lines, and they come back. It's like, I mean, that's the coolest thing in the world, so yeah, thank you to everyone that's in Dented Dimension or has appeared in the past or in the future.
And do you have any advice for people looking to start a podcast?
Nah, just start doing it, because yeah, I mean, I'm really a fan of like the DIY, the kind of punk aesthetic of, or whatever you want to call it, the kind of ethos of just do it. I mean, it doesn't take anything. You can just use your computer with no mic, and if you have a subject matter that people want to listen to, they don't care. I've listened to podcasts that don't have the what production values of, whatever, the Nerdist or whatnot, or whatever a big name one is. In fact, like a lot of my favorite bands and, film productions and stuff like that, I mean, they're charming because they are just made with passion, not with money, when you talk about like the Stooges or the Ramones or Trauma films or something like that, those are like, I love those things. And if they weren't doing it just because they have the passion to do it, because they want to do it, I mean, the world would be missing something. If we just had big budget stuff, I mean, that's cool, but it's like, what's the passion? Where are people doing it not for money? So yeah, if you have an idea and you want to do it, just open up your computer and start talking, and you could be up and running in like a night. It's not hard.
Yeah, that's the thing I love so much about podcasting is just there's such a low barrier to entry. Like back in the 90s, like me and my friends always wanted to make, independent movies, but the threshold was just so high. But now with like podcasting, there's this whole community, and like if you're making a fictional show, like people understand the context of that. They'll know what you're doing, which back in the day, that never would have been a thing.
Yeah, it's like you don't know where it's going to lead to, because you just have one, like, let's say you have ideas of, becoming a filmmaker or whatever. And just start. You can like get something free like Audacity. I mean, it's free. And then you don't even need a microphone, like we said, and then record a track over that. You can just start. And then in a few months time, ideas build upon one another, and you just won't believe where you're at, down the road once you start but you have to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And the first step does not have to be big, but then you've started. It's really exciting.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, is starting. Like I always advise people, I've talked to several people, and I think I've mentioned this a couple times on this show, is people that want to do a full season, and I try to really discourage that and just do one episode and get it out there.
Yeah, for real. No, and I fell into that pitfall, and I thought that I was like totally ready for it. And like, I want to do a series of 6, of these. It was called like The Story of the Wheel, this like ill-fated project of mine. And I'd been doing it for maybe this podcast for half a year. And that it was just so elaborate. I'm still in the middle of, it's on indefinite hiatus, but it's like, yeah, I kind of like it. Just each episode is its own thing. And once it's done, you're done with it. You don't even have to listen to it ever again, but then that's on to the next thing, So yeah, I mean, don't get bogged down in some massive series at the beginning, just each episode should be a fun kind of adventure in itself. Yeah.
And what have you done to promote your podcast? About how much time do you think you spend doing that?
Oh man. Not an insubstantial amount. But that's the part that makes me, that can make me like depressed and stuff. That's like not fun. I know it's essential, but for each episode, I have a Facebook page, I have a Twitter page. Now I have an Instagram page. I don't think anyone like follows me on Twitter or Instagram or whatnot. I'm not adept at those, but I try to at least post my my SoundCloud thing on Facebook, then Twitter, and Instagram. I've gone with Facebook ads But as you guys were talking about last time, I don't know how hollow that is. I don't know what I'm actually achieving by putting a Facebook ad, because you get listens from that, I found, but I just don't know if you get listeners.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sticky. Will they come back?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I think I'm leaving that. I began. So yeah, after about 7 months, I posted my first like Facebook ad. And I was like, okay, let me see if I post a Facebook ad each episode. When I put it out, I'll advertise on Facebook as well as just posting it. So I did that for maybe 4 episodes or something like that. And I think that I'm not going to do that again. This coming one. I've also done Facebook ads to not gain listens, but also to gain followers. Again, I don't know if that's just hollow or not, because are they real listeners? I'm not sure. I'm totally lost in the marketing aspect of it. Just trying different things, always trying stuff. I don't know what's working. I don't know what's not. It's a classic marketing kind of saying. I know half of my marketing efforts are working. I just don't know which half. But I'm going to try that Overcast thing that I heard on the last podcaster that you were speaking with. He recommended. So I've taken out an Overcast ad, but I don't know. I don't know how. Well,
at least you're advertising with Overcast to podcast listeners. You don't know that.
Is that what it is? I wasn't familiar with that. Yeah. What is that exactly?
I believe Overcast is a podcasting app for the iOS platform, so like the iPhones and stuff. And people like it because it has, people have problems with the Apple podcasting client, so this one's got like more features and stuff. So you're kind of advertising to the podcast junkies, those hardcore listeners that everybody wants to reach, because those people are also kind of the influencers. They're the person that recommends good podcasts to you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. It's like my thing is so specialized. Like oh man, like I might just like, after this, I don't know, foray into like marketing, just put out stuff and just like wait. I'm kind of getting over it, because the more I try, it was the same thing with trying to submit stories to literary mags. Like the more, once it's finished and like the creativity and stuff, that's such a blast. Just the marketing, it's like, it makes you feel bad. It makes me feel bad about myself.
You are 100% right. Yeah, it is very draining, and like when you're putting things out there and you're experimenting with stuff and you're getting no traction, it's very discouraging, and you're already doing things you don't want to do.
Right. Exactly. And I always loved, and then when I started on another episode, like, why am I doing this? And you start writing and you're like, oh wait, no, it's because this is awesome. This is fun. Oh my God. So yeah, it's like, I want to stay rooted in what's the fun about it. And marketing is a necessary evil. I definitely want to make sure I'm doing that, but I don't do more than I need to, because, it's just not fun for me.
So do you keep up much with the podcasting industry news?
No, not at all. Where would you even go for that? Besides your show?
My we're just interviews, but like I really like Pod News. They're relatively new, and they do like a newsletter and a blog, and also like a short podcast, and it's just about what's going on with Spotify or Pandora, and just news. So if you're like a podcast, like if you're really into podcasts, like I suppose me, it's a good place to learn about stuff. But I'm really interested in finding maybe things that I don't know about. But so far everyone's been like, So yeah. I mean, I think in an interview earlier today, we were talking about, even when you go to some of these podcast guru people, the people that have, the courses and stuff, they just post those same articles over and over again about, what mics you should buy. And they're all affiliate links. Like they always talk about gear because they always want those affiliate links. And it's very frustrating.
Oh, is that it? Is that kind of like the cryptocurrency kind of thing, where it's like a arena or whatnot, kind of a space where people are, I don't know, on there because they're getting money for pitching stuff?
A little bit. Yeah. So like if you were to make a site or a blog about podcasting, and you're talking about equipment, you could be like, I could use those Amazon affiliate links and then get like, I don't know what it is, like 10% off of people's purchases. And when you're like, podcasting equipment can be expensive, and you do the math, you're like, that could be a good amount of money. And then that kind of becomes your entire site, is you're just constantly recommending equipment, which is pretty good for them, because like a lot of podcasters have that kind of, somebody had I think in a previous podcast, somebody had a name for it, but like that gear addiction where you're constantly buying a new microphone or a new mixer or a condenser. There's always some new gadget.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I don't think that's going to, unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be me. I just recently got like one new microphone. I think I'm good for years. I'd imagine. I think I got what I need.
Yeah. So how many microphones do you use?
Just one. I began like thinking I was going to need a ton. It's like like a typical, I imagine, like aspiring podcaster. Like I need like a table, right? I need like a table and multiple like screens and stuff like that. And then all these arms with like microphones all over them, so I can have like 3 guests at a time and things like that. So I bought, I think, a kit with 2, and ended up only using like one of those because since I record one person at a time, it's like I found that I need one microphone, and I ended up getting a new one, but I only bought one of them, and I think that I'm going to be good with like one. So, yeah.
I think it really shows there's the people that are really into gear don't really produce content. I mean, they do, but not that much. And like doing these interviews, I've noticed the people who aren't all that into gear, they're the ones producing the content. I think it's another, we've talked about this on the show a couple times now about how podcasters often procrastinate and don't get started. Like people will tell me about like, oh, I had this idea that I've been working on for like 6 months for a podcast. And it's like, well, put it out there. But you're kind of afraid. It's a very vulnerable thing doing a podcast and putting yourself out there. I think the gear is like one more place to kind of procrastinate because they're like, oh, I need to save up the money for that $500 microphone and then I need the mixer. Whereas, you could just go on to Amazon and just my budget, what mic can I buy?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so do you yourself listen to that many podcasts?
Yes. I probably listen to too many. I probably listen to podcasts too much. I don't know if I have that big of a range. I tend to listen to like Joe Rogan and the last podcast on the left, someone mentioned the Dollop. I'd binged that quite a bit. Those guys are really good. Things like How Did This Get Made? Is it How Did This Get Made?
I think so, yeah.
The films?
Yeah, I think so.
One where they make fun of like the films. That's pretty funny. The Art of Manliness occasionally can be pretty good. History Unplugged. And then the Hardcore History is like...
Yeah, he's amazing.
Super.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. But I'm typically listening to podcasts. I don't know, all day essentially. I need to like maybe give it a rest.
but it's working for you.
The freedom that it gives you, you're not sucked to a screen. Some of my coworkers were watching a podcast. I don't think I've ever watched a podcast, when they put it on YouTube and stuff. And I guess that's a completely different way to engage with it because they'll put up like visuals. And for me, it's not that. It's like, it allows me to be not only mobile, because I can be doing different stuff. I can be going about my day. I can be going home on the bus. What I'm about to do, I'm gonna go and listen to whatever I've got lined up. But also allow me to like think too. And then it's just not like reading, but it's more of a mental image, which is what I like, which is what I'm trying to create with my show. It's like a mental image. There's no visual component because that's for you to create. So that's why I think it's an awesome medium.
Yeah, it's definitely very unique. I mean, from the podcaster to the listener and from the listener to the podcaster, the relationship is very strange. And I don't think that unless you've experienced it, it's hard to explain. Like it's very intimate. It's different.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'd never even heard of them or a podcast before I even came to Seattle 5.5 years ago. Can't believe that I've been here that long. But my first girlfriend that I had here, she was like, "Oh, you've got to listen to podcasts." Like, what is that? I'm just not a tech person at all. And when someone says the new tech thing that I got to do, it's like I'm not doing that. And she actually downloaded the app, put Serial on it, and like, you have to listen to this. I didn't even know how to do it. Like, so it's there. Like, what do I do? I don't even know. And then we like broke up or something like that. It took me 6 months, and I finally was bored out of my mind one day and pushed the thing, and it ended up becoming like super passionate about it. But like, a lot of people don't have even a clue of what podcasts are. And I've been there. So it's interesting because it's only going to grow, I would imagine.
Yeah. As more people kind of cross that threshold of not thinking that it's like some kind of geeky or weird thing. But when people start using it, it's so very natural. It's like you listen to music with headphones. Okay, you can do this too.
Yeah.
So how do you discover new shows?
It's like, man, I would say word of mouth. That's so strange. And I've heard it, and that's just like the truth. That word of mouth, I think, it's alive and well. I mean, that's one of the biggest, strongest marketing techniques there is. I mean, if you have something of value, it might take forever, but you're going to find your audience because the right people are going to listen eventually, and they're going to be your biggest advocates. I forget. I'm pretty sure someone told me about Hardcore History. Someone definitely told me about the last podcast on the left. It took me forever to listen to both of those, but like Serial, it's like, because I don't know, I'm very, I guess, stubborn. And I don't even think it's like not even a positive way, just stubborn. Like, oh, you have an idea that I'm not going to listen to that. Forget it. But it's like in my mind. And then like after a long time, then I'll give it a shot. And then it ends up being great, you know? So I would say the majority of what I listened to were recommended to me by someone that I respected. They were either a friend or a family. No, generally just friends. And then a couple of them, I just had an interest in the field. Like I'm a history kind of buff. I think I listened to like an extremely nerdy podcast called, Ancient Warfare podcast. And there's like Ancient Warfare magazine podcast. Yeah. And it's just like, I just was Googling like ancient Rome or something like that, and it came up. So just, we're not Googling, but looking in the podcast app. So if I have a specific thing that I want, I'll look into that. But a lot of times that's really hit or miss. I tend to take recommendations from people, and that kind of that means it's been tempered by something, and it generally is a cut above.
So as a listener, do you have any podcasting pet peeves?
I would say, and people that don't listen to true crime podcasts, because that's another thing that I didn't mention any of those. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, and I can't be too peeved at this because I'm perpetuating it since I'm a listener of it. It seems like a lot of these I'm not going to name it because I'm a fan of these guys work hard on it. But as this podcast grows an audience, and this happened to a couple of them, their production values are going up. They're adding like these really thumping, like kind of musical kind of scores at the beginning and things like that. But I don't know, like Debbie was just like, she came home and then she got like dismembered and killed and blah, blah, blah. And this goes to like music. And then like, it's like an intro, like it's cool. Like it just seems really distasteful. Like you're just capitalizing off of someone's misery. And I just like, in terms of the true crime realm, I think that's really questionable morally. Just trying to make a spectacle and cash in on someone's misery. So I don't like that. But then again, I listen to a ton of episodes on that. It's not stopping me listening.
Well, that's how like a lot of like cultural mass media criticism is. You know, you recognize that I'm viewing this, but maybe it's not the best.
Right. I mean, I love it's. And I don't even know where to begin, but yes, I don't stop listening to it. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a huge genre right now, and it is so very, very engaging. Like it like triggers something like primal in the brain. It's storytelling. It's, tragic. It hits all the bells.
Right. And these guys, they're learning to do it really well. It's like they do it effectively. That's why I listen, because there's so many of them. But at the same time, it's like, all right, maybe don't put the 911 call and cut it up and make into a DJ song. It's like, that's kind of like, if I was to do a spoof of that, that's kind of where my mind goes, like to spoof a commercial for a true crime podcast. But that would be such a niche kind of thing that people wouldn't understand what I was doing. But that's where I want to do. I just want to like make fun of that because it's kind of shocking.
Well, SNL did it with the,
oh, did they?
I don't watch this. Right? Did you see that?
They do it?
Yeah.
I'm interested.
It was it was like the podcast awards, and they're spoofing, and they had a clip from one of these true crime podcasts, and the lady was talking about the person being killed and how brutal it was, and then she just immediately goes to the Blue Apron commercial, and it's all happy and chipper. And it's just like the jarring change of And so, it's got widespread appeal because SNL did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. Huh. Well, that's I'm always looking for commercials to do as well. So maybe I'll have to do it because my involves more just the music because it's like always these urban beat stuff that they do. Like they go directly into the urban beats right after. It's like, oh my God. So, okay, maybe next project.
So it's still the beginning of the year. You don't have to have any, but do you have any podcasting predictions for 2019?
No, I don't even know what that is. I'm off in my own corner working on stuff that no one's going to listen to. I have no idea what's going on.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I absolutely love your Dented Dimension. It is so great. How can people find your show?
It's on just anything. It's on just see I'm going to try to do what I don't put on my episodes. I mean, like us on Facebook. I think we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, what the other TuneIn, whatever. I mean, whatever normal people are on, minus Spotify, we're on.
And it's denteddimensions.com, right?
Yeah, I think it has a webpage too, but I haven't even updated that. So yeah, denteddimension.com. But yeah, the podcast is called Dented Dimension.
Oh, I pluralized it. Sorry. I'll have the correct links in the show notes, though.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, no, totally. You're like fan number one, man. When you actually liked the page, I was like, and I saw like, oh, that's one of my friends. It's the guy who lives in Seattle now. I looked at you like, no, don't know that guy. And it was from when you had long hair, like,
oh yeah, with a big beard and.
I don't know if you had a beard, but I was like, okay, so this guy's just crazy. So he likes my show, and I don't know him, and he lives here. Okay, this guy's nuts. But then I met you, and you're definitely not nuts, man. I really, really appreciate the opportunity, dude.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, of course, dude. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Seth, for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. And once again, I love your show. To everyone listening, go out there, take a listen to Dented Dimension. It is very unique, very creative. It is going to be an experience unlike anything you probably have heard before. It may not be your cup of tea, but I'm sure some of you out there that you will get hooked, just like I was. If you want to know more about Dented Dimension, the links are in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Seattle Podcasters Podcast. I've been your host, Jason Rigden. I hope to talk to you again soon. The Seattle Podcasters Podcast is a production of the Seattle Podcasters Guild. You can find more information about the Seattle Podcasters Guild or this podcast by visiting seattlepodcasters.com. This show has been hosted and produced by me, Jason Rigden. Our theme song was Stringed Disco by Kevin MacLeod. Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0.